My biggest mistake when I was a teenager, you think you're doing everything right. You think you're just living, just figuring things out, just trying to fit in. You don't realize that some of the choices you make at that age, they don't just shape your teenage years, they shape your life. And the scariest part? You often don't even know you're making a mistake until years later, when the damage has already been done. Let me tell you something real. When I was a teenager, I thought I knew everything. I thought life was simple. Do what feels good, follow the crowd, don't think too much. But looking back now, with the kind of clarity only time can give you, I can see it clearly. My biggest mistake wasn't a single moment. It wasn't one bad decision. It was a mindset, one I carried for years without even realizing how much it was holding me back. That mindset? I cared too much about what people thought of me. I didn't live my life for myself. I lived it to be liked, and I didn't even realize it until it was too late. When you're young, approval feels like oxygen. You want people to like you. Your friends, your classmates, that girl or guy you secretly like but never talk to. You think being accepted means you're doing something right, so you change. Not all at once, slowly, piece by piece. You stop saying what you really think. You stop doing what you truly want. You start becoming the kind of person you think others will like. And it feels harmless. It feels normal. Everyone does it, right? You tell yourself it's just how the world works. You play along, you blend in. But what you don't realize is that every time you silence yourself to please others, every time you laugh when something isn't funny, every time you pretend to agree when you don't, you're not just faking it, you're losing yourself. Back then, I thought being liked meant being valuable. If people approved of me, I must be doing something right. If they disapproved, I must have done something wrong. And that kind of thinking is poison, because once you start basing your worth on how others see you, you stop seeing yourself at all. I remember one moment that still burns in my mind. I was about 16. There's this big group of friends I wanted to be part of, the cool ones. They always looked confident, always seemed like they had life figured out. I thought if I could just fit in with them, I'd finally feel like I belonged. So I started acting like them. I dressed like them, I spoke like them. I laughed at the same jokes even when I didn't find them funny. And slowly, I became one of them, at least on the surface. But here's the truth I learned too late. When you change yourself to fit in, you don't actually belong anywhere. You're just an actor in someone else's movie. It's easy to think you're being social, being friendly, being adaptable. But deep down, you know you're not being you. And every night when you go home and look in the mirror, you feel that small, silent voice inside. The one that whispers, "This isn't who you are." But I ignored that voice, over and over. Because being liked felt better than being alone. Because attention felt better than authenticity. Because I thought blending in meant success. And for a while, it worked. People liked me. I got invited to places. I got noticed. But what no one tells you is this: when you wear a mask for too long, you forget what your real face looks like. I remember one afternoon, years later, I ran into an old friend from high school. We started talking, catching up, laughing about the old days. And then he said something that hit me like a brick. He said, "Man, you were always such a people pleaser. You never said no to anyone." He meant it as a joke, but it stopped me cold. Because deep down, I knew he was right. I had built my entire teenage identity around not disappointing people. And the truth is, it wasn't about kindness. It was about fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being left out. Fear of standing alone. And that fear is what ruins so many people before they even realize it. It kills potential before it ever gets the chance to grow. It turns confident kids into silent adults. It turns dreamers into imitators. Because you can't create anything real when you're terrified of what people will think. You can't find your voice when you're afraid it won't be liked. When I finally realized that, I looked back and saw how many opportunities I had wasted. I never spoke up in class when I had a different opinion. I laughed off things that actually hurt me. I said yes to things I hated just to avoid looking difficult. And worst of all, I watched other people chase their dreams while I played it safe, telling myself, maybe one day. But one day never comes when you're always waiting for permission. No one's gonna clap for you just for existing. No one's gonna hand you confidence. You have to build it yourself, piece by piece, from the wreckage of all your mistakes. The truth is, my biggest mistake wasn't about friends or popularity. It was about fear of judgment. That fear controlled me more than I ever admitted. I was afraid to try new things because what if I failed and people laughed? Afraid to speak my mind because what if I was wrong? Afraid to stand out because what if people didn't like me anymore? But what I didn't understand then is this: people are always going to judge you, no matter what you do. If you play it safe, they'll call you boring. If you take risks, they'll call you crazy. If you succeed, they'll call you lucky. If you fail, they'll say they knew it all along. So why give them that power in the first place? When I finally stopped living for others, something strange happened. The same people who once ignored me started respecting me. The same people who used to mock my choices started asking for my advice. Because when you stop chasing approval, you start attracting respect. When you stop trying to please everyone, you start finding the ones who truly see you. But I had to go through years of emptiness to learn that lesson. I had to hit that point where I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Because that's what happens when you spend too long pretending. You lose your identity. And when you lose that, you lose everything that actually matters. You might think your teenage years are just a phase. You might think they don't define you, but they do. Because that's when your habits are formed. That's when you build your mindset. And if you build it on approval, on validation, on fear, you'll carry that into adulthood. You'll take it into your job, your relationships, your dreams. You'll start making every decision through the lens of what will people think. And that is the fastest way to build a life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. See, most people never grow out of their teenage mindset. They just get older. They still care more about looking successful than being fulfilled. They still say yes when they mean no. They still live like they're being graded by an invisible audience. And it's tragic because the freedom they're searching for has been inside them all along. They just never gave themselves permission to live it. That was my biggest mistake as a teenager. But it became my greatest lesson as an adult. Because the moment I stopped living for others, I finally started living for real. The choice is yours. You can keep chasing approval, pretending to be what people want you to be, or you can stand tall, be yourself, and build a life that no one else controls. One path gives you comfort now, regret later. The other gives you struggle now, freedom forever. The question is, which one will you choose?